Welcome back to another board game tier list, everybody. Today we are doing War of the Ring card game, the Free People's Cards. So, without further ado, let's get to it. So, S tier is best, F tier is the worst. We already did the Shadow side, so it'll be interesting to see how they compare. We'll do it one faction at a time. The Great Gate. And again, I think for simplicity's sake, I'm not going to go into too much depth on each of these cards. This one is A tier. It's very, very strong at defense, but it can only go at one place. So I'd say that's why. Halbarad. Yeah, he can be really good to get Strider or Aragorn, obviously. So I'd say this is another card that right off the bat is going to go A tier. And then Strider, incredible. His ability is amazing. If he doesn't die, he can come back. Although there's only certain paths he can come to. So unless you had a great way to get him back, that's probably not the move. Or it is good to advance. It's okay for him to die. Boromir. Yep. I think we're actually going to put Boromir in B tier because he just really doesn't want to go on a path. He can defend a bunch of things, but obviously if he defends anything, he's going to die if his defense is actually used. So I think he would be a solid B tier character. And then Soldiers of Gondor. Oof. Okay, so I think it's worth mentioning that when I'm making this tier list, I'm considering every single battleground that could come into, or essentially, we're considering every single scenario, which is a little bit hard to do because certain scenarios you don't use certain cards or whatever. But we're considering everything, and I think if this was just the normal trilogy, this would be F. Because the only place it's really going to fight is Minas Tirith unless they attack the other two, which is somewhat unlikely, and it doesn't defend for a ton. Even if they do that, even Boromir would be better to go out there. But I think C tier is reasonable given that there's skirmishes and some other battlegrounds that get added. Faramir! Yeah, so good. I think Faramir is another S tier character. Because he essentially just like a guaranteed victory point, and you get to resolve another path 7, which is going to be helpful for you because that has a good ability. Guards of the Citadel. Well, if this one was A tier, this one logically should probably be B tier. Aragorn. Yep, this is going to be an S tier card. There's other cards that will come up, and we'll talk about it when they all get out here. Again, sorry, the way that these cards are written, it's very hard to make a solid tier list unless you put them all sideways, which I guess we could have done, but we still would have ran out of room that way. So, Knights of Dol Amroth. Yeah, slightly better than this. They're never going to fight at Dol Amroth, really, so I think that one goes to C tier. Paths of the Dead. Love this card. It's an event, so you use it and then it goes away, but you forsake 2 cards, then draw 4 or 5 if Strider or Aragorn are in reserve. So this can be a really big card to help you sustain or gain pace when you're in trouble. I don't see any way that this could not be S tier. It can really hurt you, but you just need to know how to either play into it or play around it. If you're already playing a version of his build or of his deck where he's going to go through and forsake a ton of stuff really quickly anyways, and you're trying to go for a long game, then this is not the card to play. But if you are doing a bunch of Strider shenanigans and you're trying to end the game in 4 or 5 turns, essentially, this card is amazing, and it doesn't matter if you forsake some important stuff because you gain pace, and that's really important. Okay, Anduril. This card is the one. So there's many ways you can play this game. I've played a ton solo. I've played also a ton multiplayer. essentially you either want to as the free people, you do want to advance the path as much as you can in general. The only exception to that would be if you have Aragorn and Andoril and Gandalf and Shadowfax, and you want to just activate / reactivate a ton of battlegrounds over and over and over and over again. And then in that case, this actually helps you to thin your deck if you know that those cards aren't there and you just want to get back to them over and over and over again. Because this card doesn't go away. From reserve, you may use your action to activate or reactivate any Dunedain battleground. Then you must move the wielder to that battleground, even if it was played this round. So you would have to move Aragorn or Strider out to the battleground, but assuming that that he doesn't die, it will go to your reserve, and then you can play this again, essentially. Where some of I think the shadow ones are events, so they are one-time effects, whereas these can come again and again and again. Prince Imrahil. Yeah. I don't like it. Man, I don't know if he actually deserves to be all the way in F, but at least these people can support armies. If this just got you Knights of Dol Amroth, that would be a huge upgrade, but unfortunately, he's F. Denethor, this one is either really good or, actually, honestly, it can only be so good, so probably not ever really good. If you are going the incredibly fast deck, you can do some shenanigans with Boromir and Faramir, which ends up being really, really good. But the amount that you forsake in this deck is already high. So if you lean into it even more and use this, you can really hurt yourself. Because this, actually, I think that it's only fair to put this in C tier. I think in general, it's not the efficient play. Sometimes it's really good if you can get Faramir and then get... and then you can get Faramir back to activate a different path, theoretically. But this is one of the promos. Eorith. After a battleground combat, including this card, you may cycle it and one other non-wizard free people character in that combat instead of eliminating them. So this is not going to happen a ton except for Minas Tirith, really. And this character would need to be supporting an army, and then theoretically you would be... This could help with Boromir, theoretically, but you'd still have to have another army, or you'd have to have 2 armies and one of these in order to maximize the leadership. I don't think this card's very good. F tier. Blade of Westernesse. So this is a weapon that can go on a hobbit, which you would think is somewhat restricted, but there's so many hobbits that there's really no restriction on this. And at least Merry and Pippin, this won't go away when they are destroyed. I think we just have to put this in B tier, though. We'll see. The Three Hunters. Hate this card. Never, ever, ever played it effectively. Dead Men of Dunharrow. Yeah, this would be an A tier card as well. It's good, but it has to go with Strider or Aragorn. You don't always want to do that. The Red Arrow. I know that this card has a place in the game. It doesn't feel like a card that I ever really want to play. It is important, and I appreciate it, but F tier. Now some of the expansion cards. Athelas. If in play, you may use your action to eliminate this card so that the free people player of your choice may take one non-wizard character from their cycle pile into hand. So this can go on Strider, Aragorn, or Elrond, but not... Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, it does go on all of them, not Galadriel. Yeah, this I think is a solid card. Whoever you're going to grab is going to be a really good character. I think it will just go in B tier. Actually, I guess this is theoretically better than him. So, or just as good as him. I think we'll put this in A tier. I think that's where it deserves to be. Challenge of the King. Each Shadow player must, this is an event, must cycle one card from hand, then Strider, if Strider or Aragorn are in reserve. Each Free People player draws one card. Yeah, I think this card is awesome. Because you will only play it when that happens, but man, that card is good. The Grey Company. Essentially, it can just be used anywhere, which is really, really solid. Because of the versatility, I think it's going to go A tier. We Prove the Swifter. Forsake one card, then draw 4 cards. Then you may take an additional action. This card is awesome as well. It's crazy that this team got buffed with this. When played or moved to a path or battleground, you may forsake 2 cards and eliminate this card to add stuff to the wielder. Yeah, this is a very solid card as well. It's a tiny bit situational, which means it's only going to go to A tier, but it's very good. Stout Staves. Weapon. If on path 7 or 8, you may use your action to eliminate or to activate your random path 8. Then each shadow player draws 2 cards and must cycle 1 card from hand. Yeah, so this is an ability, or a version of this is an ability that comes up a ton in, I believe it's called Fire and Sword, the newest expansion. And I understand its relevance, but I think that often when you advance the path, one of the things that you're trying to do is advance it in a time where you know you can win the current path and your opponent can't stop you or at least hurt you too bad on the next path. And whenever you do this, you are enabling them to be able to beat you on the next path, which is very, very dangerous. So I don't find this card to be very good. It can also only go on Frodo with Sam, so it's not like it's just a solid Hobbit item. If it was, it would be in B tier, but C. All right, we've moved to the elves, the high elves. So one thing that you'll notice about these is that these guys are very strong in both. Often they can't even maximize this strength, though. I guess with some of the new battlegrounds that might happen, but I think for now they would be A tier. But I think that they're actually towards the bottom of A tier. Or maybe this is the more accurate thing. They're so good. They are so good that they unincentivize the shadow from actually attacking. So often the shadow won't even attack the elven battlegrounds, at least the base ones, just because these guys are so scary if they were to come out. Arwen. I think that this is a solid C. Yeah. I think that this is a solid C tier card. Often, not much happens with this one. Yeah. Galadriel. Yeah, just so good. So good. Again, she's a character that sometimes she doesn't get maximized. At the end of the game, she'll still be out there, but you gotta hope. This card is awesome. Okay, so this can go on an elf or hobbit. So essentially, if you can play this on anybody, either of those that you want to, but if it goes on either Frodo or Sam, or I guess another hobbit other than Merry or Pippin, or if it goes on, I guess, any elf, but typically Legolas, they get cycled and all of their items get cycled as well. So there's some builds where you will just use this Legolas and then his bow, and then you have 3 defense on every path, essentially, as long as you can get them out every turn, or often at least. So, speaking of him, Legolas, another awesome character. So it sucks if your bow doesn't come out. But man, he's... I'm struggling between A and S. I think that you can use him to get him to S if you use him correctly, but otherwise I think he's just a solid A tier card. And then his bow is awesome, as we talked about. It's very, very good. but it's more of a combo thing. So in general, I think it's just a B. And then Galadriel's ring, Nenya, Ring of Adamant. Probably got that one wrong. This is a very, very, very good card. It's an awesome way for her to still be relevant in the late game. I don't think I can put it in S tier because it's an item, but I do think it's A tier for sure. Elrond. Elrond, I would say, is less good than Galadriel because you have to get him earlier in order to do stuff. Also, the Shadow doesn't normally attack Path 3. So he ends up being somewhat wasted. I think because you can only go to one path, and it's such an early one, I think you can only be A tier. Mirror of Galadriel. This is either really helpful or really not helpful. When I play solo games, sometimes I'll prioritize this and other times I won't, depending on how quickly I'm going. So I think my hot take on this is that it's actually C tier. I think that there are only like 3 cards in this game that you never want to forsake if you are doing specific strategies. So this is Anduril and Shadowfax are cards that you just never want to forsake. Those are horrible. But literally everything else, if it says forsake 1 card and then draw 3 cards or 2 cards or 1 card or whatever it is, it's almost always worth doing, in my opinion. Definitely when you're playing solo, that's the move. And if you have any pace at all, that's definitely the move. So I believe that that's the reason why. Because essentially, if you deplete cards in your hand, that takes resources away from you. If you deplete cards from play, that depletes even more resources from you. And if you deplete cards from the top of the deck, you're theoretically not even hurting yourself. You're just diminishing the number of cards that you could get in the future. So if it happens to be something really good, that sucks. But you can always just forget this as well, I guess. But I don't think it's as important to play safe as the Free People, as some people who play the Free People think that it is. High Elves, we've already seen them. Vilya, the Ring of Air, Elrond's ring. Honestly, I think I'm gonna put this one all the way down in C. It's symbols. Just Elrond normally doesn't do much, and it essentially is just a card that exists but doesn't do very much at all. Because you cycle 1 card to play it, and then your team gets to draw either 2 or 3 cards, depending on how many people you're playing with. So it's just really very, very, very mid, but a little bit lower because it's an item. Okay, item for Frodo or Sam. Add the Phial of Galadriel. This is just incredible. Goes in S tier. I'm sure everybody knows why. Lembas Bread. This is a card that when I started playing this game, I thought it sucked. And then I realized that it's hard to maximize, but you can maximize it. Hopefully you would do that on path 8 or 9. And if you were to maximize it, it does a ton. There's so many shenanigans that are built just around this, like with Gollum, so that he can cycle. But I do think that it's an S tier or an A tier card. It's a little bit hard to pull off, which is why it's not S, but it can save you 4 victory points or more theoretically, although it's a little bit unlikely it would get to that many. Okay, Thranduil. As a note, any card that draws you a card is already a really good card unless it has a that draws you cards when it's played is a really good card because essentially it costs you 1 card instead of 2. The 1 card that you're playing and the 1 card that you cycle. The only one that has a drawback is Boromir, which is why he's still here. Better at defending the Woodland Realm. Kind of just a solid guy. But he can't go to the path at all. And no, I think I can't rationalize putting him in S tier. Just a solid B tier character. Círdan the Shipwright. When played, good stuff happens. He kind of draws you a card-ish. I think he's another character that's just B tier. Celeborn. Okay, so this one's interesting. If on path 5, you may use your action to activate a different random path 5. So this is actually really good, and it's very... So it's a little bit worse than Faramir, because his is theoretically instantaneous. Dol Guldur and Lorien almost always come out as well. This is actually just a really, really good card. You also want to activate a bunch of path 5s if you can, so this one is just solid. Although I can't remember what all the paths are, or all the path 5s are off the top of my head. But I know, yeah, that this is just really good. So honestly, I think I'm going to be crazy. I think he can go all the way to S tier, because he's essentially going to guarantee you a victory point. He might not die. It's a random path 5, but he also has leadership on Dol Guldur and Lorien, which are almost certainly going to come out every game. So, Glorfindel, if on path 2 or 3, you may use your action cycle this card to activate a random path 3, then each blah blah blah. So then bad stuff happens. It can get you off of there, off of path 2 really quick. The problem though is that with this one, you don't cycle him. With this one, you do cycle him. And in the process of cycling him, you lose the defense that you have on that path, which is a problem. Because of that, I think he's just a B tier card. Could be situationally good, but not that great. Sylvan Elves. When played, you can draw 1 card and cycle 1 card from hand. Slightly helpful. I don't think it's good enough to deserve being past C tier. Okay, we've made it to the wizard cards. Gandalf the Grey is... So yes. So I think that earlier I talked about how the Free People player has some cards. In my other video, essentially, I talked about how the Free People player has some cards that aren't even S tier. They're like Omega tier. At the end of this, we'll go over who those might be. Gandalf's sword, Glamdring. Honestly, I never play this card. Is it good? Yes, theoretically, but essentially you're building it up on either... Yeah, I just don't think it's very good. I'm going to put it all the way down in F tier. You either don't want Gandalf to die, Gandalf the Grey to die. You really just don't want Gandalf the Grey to die ever. So this is like a one-time use card that's an item. So it's situationally difficult to play. Even if you can play it on Gandalf the Grey, you probably don't even want to be using his symbols or his defense, because you want him to be able to come back in the future. There's some times where that's not the case, but in general, that would be what you're going for, in my opinion. So yeah, just not it. Treebeard. Yeah, Treebeard is just very, very solid. So the wizard characters can go, meaning the wizard faction characters, can go to any battlegrounds, essentially. And man, Treebeard can just wreak some havoc on a bunch of things. And if you're playing against people that don't know what they're doing, his when played or moved to a battleground, the Isengard player must eliminate 1 Isengard army on that battleground. That can be so devastating. Once people know what they're doing, it's very difficult. But he's going to be an S tier card. I think we might have to go like this now. Gwahir. Yeah, just really good. Just really good. I don't know if I can say that he belongs in S tier, but I do think for sure that he belongs in A tier. Entdrot. This is a good effect, although I just don't think that often you're going to have an Ent sitting out. There's literally only 2 Ents, and if you have Treebeard at the right time, you're going to play him. You're not really going to play them to reserve unless you just don't have anything else to do that's helpful. The ability is very solid, but because it's so niche, I think C tier is the spot. Gandalf the White, going to be another S tier card. Another thing I just worth mentioning about these is if Forsaken from the top of your draw deck, cycle this card instead of eliminating it. So you are, again, in my opinion, you are incentivized to Forsake from the top of your deck because your best cards are going to come back and your worst cards are going to go away. And your middle cards you'll still get hit, but and I guess you don't get him this time through your deck, which is painful, but it's not as painful. Quick Beam. Man, Quick Beam can be so effective at the right time or not very effective at all. I think that I need to put Quick Beam in B tier because even though he's a wizard character, he really just he can't go to any battleground other than Isengard ones, which is essentially Rohan ones as well. But B tier. Smeagol. Yeah, so the add 1 corruption to activate a path to the next higher level. That's painful, but sometimes it's worth it. And if you're winning by enough, then it's just the move. This can't be done on path 9, which is important. I think I'm going to say that my hot take on this one is that Smeagol is actually just B tier. Narya. I think that this one can be helpful, so I think we'll put it in C tier because it actually has an ability unlike this one. And I guess it does a little bit more shenanigans with, Cyrodiil, but I do think it's just C tier. And this is another one that really just doesn't do much. Yes, you can increase your carryover limit. I don't, because I like to forsake from the top of the deck, I always try to get my hand to an odd number of cards, and then I forsake from the top of the deck as my last action. So my carryover limit only lets me pass, but won't let me save cards for the next round in general, just based on how I play. So this one I don't find to be very good. Radagast. If in reserve, you may use your action to eliminate this card to take a wizard card from your draw deck into hand. Yeah, okay, so that's just really, really good. This can get you a very quick Gandalf, or you could have already used one of your versions of Gandalf. This can get you the next one, and then you can use this other card to get Gandalf back once he can come back. So there's so many shenanigans you can do, and if you don't happen to be able to maximize this for whatever reason, you could also get Treebeard, I guess. But if you don't happen to be able to maximize this, you can still go to Path 5, or you can just defend a random battleground. So, Tom Bombadil. Why wasn't this dude in Lord of the Rings? Or in the movies, I mean. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about this. Well, you're going to ignore the top part. If in reserve, you may use when resolved text precisely states each Free People player must forsake one card, you may cycle this card instead. I have not played, literally don't know if I've ever played one game of 6-player. Maybe I have. So in that situation, this card might be better because I think that the forsake mechanic is more effective. Obviously, if you're going to make people forsake 3 cards, then this is better. But when there's only 2 people on one team, I don't think that the shadow making you forsake cards is very beneficial to them. I think that that's a thing that most of the shadow cards have. It says if in reserve, you may forsake this card to make each of the free people player forsake 1 card. But that's such a waste if you use those cards for that effect. So I really just don't think Tom Bombadil is really good. There's a slight chance he's going to do something on Path 2, but it's very unlikely. So I'd say F tier. Okay, Myth Rohan, Eowyn. Okay, so she's a little bit complicated. When played to a battleground, you may choose a Nazgul character on that battleground and eliminate it. That's helpful. When played to reserve, you may take Merry or Pippin from your cycle pile into hand. So you can't do both of these ever, but you might be able to do one. Or it might not necessarily have an effect, but you can certainly do one. I guess we'll put her in B tier. It can get you a Hobbit, which is very good. Shadowfax. Just another S tier card. Okay. Yeah, there's just so many shenanigans with these characters. So, very good. Village Militia. This one would normally be an F tier, but because there's so many cards that can fetch you Rohan, because there's so many effects that can fetch you Rohan things, it gets bumped up to C tier. Death Ride to Ruin. Eliminate any number of Rohan cards from reserve. The Mordor player must eliminate the same number of Mordor cards from active battlegrounds. This one can be very effective. Have I ever seen it be very effective? Honestly, maybe once. And because of that, I think I need to move this, put this in C tier. Okay. Riders of Rohan. I don't think I can put this all the way in A tier. I just don't think it deserves to be in A tier. Because the Mordor ones that have 2 attack, they can go on a significant amount of battlegrounds. The Riders of Rohan can only go on a few battlegrounds. So, Gone. While in reserve, Rohan cards may be played or moved to Minas Tirith. I think this card kind of sucks, but I know that it's good. I know the effect is good, so we're going to put that one in C tier. Yeah. Éomer. You can hit with this and have it be very good. You can also miss. I guess I'm going to assume that you're playing at your highest potential. So I think one thing that people do wrong with the Rohan cards is that they will just randomly do this. I think that these are often effects that you want to save till later in the game. And then you thin the rest of your deck except for your Rohan cards, or you just know where things are later. And you play this in order to get a Rohan army, or you play, let's see who, Theoden to get Éomer, and then Éomer gets the Riders of Rohan. There's a bunch of random things that can happen. We talked about this. Theoden, we just talked about you. So his is a Rohan army, his is a Rohan card. She's even better. And then he's boosted if Gandalf's in play. And then Theodred. When played, draw 5 cards from these. You can play one Rohan character and cycle the rest. So you could also do Theodred to Éomer to Riders of Rohan. Or there's just a bunch of ways that you can get big and do big things at this point. So, okay, we made it to the dwarves. Gimli. Yeah, similar to Legolas, a little bit harder to do stuff that's super efficient. Less battlegrounds you can go to as well, but I still think he is A tier. His axe. Yeah, I think. Sorry for the lack of room, people. This one's gonna go to B tier. Okay, Book of Mazarbul. Sorry, it's been a while since I pronounced that word. If in play, you may use your action and eliminate this card, so each free player may take 1 random card from their cycle pile into hand. This is actually really, 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 really good, and you can plan so many things around this. So that, like, Gandalf goes into my cycle pile, and then I resolve this. And then I can get Gandalf back. Because you can make sure there's only 1 card in your cycle pile, theoretically. There's ways to either give yourself really good odds with this, or to just make this incredibly efficient. So, I don't think I can put this in S tier, because it requires some work and careful planning, but I think it can go A tier. Erebor Guard. I think this is just a solid B tier card. It's kind of hard to take Erebor anyways, but it is actually effective, so. Army of the Blue Mountains. This card may be played or moved to the Shire or the Grey Havens. This one really just has a lot of versatility. There's a lot of places it can go because of that. It's going to go B tier. Dane Ironfoot. Extra leadership on Erebor. When played, you may take one random card from your cycle pile into hand. That I also like better than drawing a card, theoretically, because there's chances that you can just do some big shenanigans. So I'm a fan of this card. Yeah, I think we're going to put this in A tier as well. There is another way. Activate a different path of the same number as the active path. Then add one defense, protection, whatever you call it, to the new path. This one is absolutely S tier. Also, we made it to the Hobbits. Mithril Coat. Do I need to explain why that's so good? Sam. Yeah, so already his thing is the same as the Hunters, I believe. But unlike the Hunter, there's pretty much no upgrades that you can put on him that are just straight effective and helpful. There's a bunch that can go on Hobbits in general, and then there's another group that can just go on Frodo and Sam. So obviously Sam would want those. He can also do some shenanigans if he gets the Elven Cloak, wherever that is. Maybe it's all the way over here. Yeah, so. Fatty Bulger. If in reserve, you use your action to eliminate this card to draw 3 cards. If in reserve, when forsaken, cycle this card instead of eliminating it. So this is just amazing. You essentially pay 2 cards to get 3 cards, but you can save it for the opportune moment, I guess. Which lets you get around your carryover limit and a bunch of other stuff. So this is a card that you will just always play every single time you get it, which is why it's S tier. Frodo. So Frodo and Sam. So Frodo, if he's on a path and he dies, he just dies. But you in general won't do that. Or sorry, Sam does that. And then Frodo, he just is never going to die. He's S tier as well. Go to every path. Tons of things can get played on him. Merry is going to be S tier as well because he just gets cycled and you can go to every path. Sting is going to be S tier as well because this is 1 defense, but really it's pretty much always going to be 2 defense. You're only going to play it at certain times. You can only go on Frodo or Sam, but it's just S tier. And then Herbs and Stewed Rabbit. If in play, you may use your action and eliminate this card to take a Hobbit character from your cycle pile into hand, then draw 1 card. I think this one can be good. I honestly, I guess we'll put it in B because it pays for itself, but I'm never too pumped to see it. Bilbo always gets you the value that you put into it. And because this is a deck that you want to go through somewhat often, so you can get to your best cards the most often, he's going to be S tier as well. And this is an interesting one because he doesn't go here because he does anything more for you than the other cards that you would have drawn, but he's a really good way to get rid of some dead turns, essentially, and get other cards that are helpful. Pippin's going to be another S tier card. Disguised as Orcs. If Sam or Frodo is on path 8 or 9, activate a random path 9, and then you essentially do the thing where they draw 2. I really don't think that's the move. I think that's F tier in my opinion. I really don't like that I just don't like it. Don't have to go deeper than that. 100 Sturdy Hobbits. This army can support any number of characters with leadership icons. Kind of cool, also kind of sucks. Go in C tier. Oh, part of me wonders if that should be lower than that. Yeah, it's time to be ruthless. That's F tier. Rosie Cotton. If you're in reserve, you use your action to cycle this card to take either Sam or Frodo from your cycle pile into hand or draw 1 card. So that is really, really, really expensive to do, by the way. You have to play her by cycling a card and getting rid of her from your hand. And then you have to cycle this to take Frodo or Sam or draw a card. You should never do it to draw a card. But let's just say you got Frodo. Now Frodo's in your hand. So now you've essentially lost one card from your hand in order to get Frodo in your hand. It's not the worst thing in the world, but then you got to play Frodo still. It's also a very slow move. Yes, there's times this can be an awesome card, but in general, I would say Rosie is more of a trap than Deliverance. Sorry, Sam. Party Invitations. If in reserve, you use your action, eliminate this card to take up to 2 Hobbit characters from your cycle pile into hand. This one's also an item. It goes on Hobbit. This one I think is a lot easier to get. This one I think is going to be B tier. I hope that's accurate with how I've been doing the rest of these. Yeah, because like this one pretty much does the same thing, but you will often have Hobbits in reserve. You will seldom have Ents in reserve, I guess. Farmer Maggot. If in reserve, you may use your action and cycle this card to either add 1 defense to the Shire or draw 1 card. Oh, just don't love it. I think this is another card that's going to go F. Okay, and then I think these are the Northmen, I think is the technical term for them. Barleyman Butterbur. If in reserve, you use your action... If in reserve, when resolving text precisely states, each hero player must forsake 1 card, you may eliminate this card instead. So he's essentially a worse version of Tom Bombadil, which I already said was bad, so he would be like F negative, I guess. But also maybe I was too mean to Tom, but he deserves it. Northman Militia. Okay, so this is why they are B tier. There's ways to get them that's easier, or there's things that you can do that make you grab them, essentially, from your deck, I believe. But also, on the Northman Battleground, 1 attack or defense is actually substantial. That's not an unmeaningful amount. Whereas, if this dude is fighting on Minas Tirith, his 1 defense means nothing. If he's attacking one of the Mordor Battlegrounds, his 1 attack does nothing, pretty much. So I think that that's the difference. On here, you're probably going to have 9 attack total. On here, you might have 0 to 3. It could go higher, but in general, that's where it'll be. Okay, Grimbeorn the Old. When played, each Shadow player must forsake 1 card. This card may also be played or moved to Dol Guldur or Lorien. If this card is so good, you can also go to... He has 2 defense, 1 attack. He can also go to path 5. I think I'm running out of room for S tier. I think we'll put him in S tier. Bill the Pony. He has the same ability, but he can go on a Hobbit. So even if you don't use the ability, he's just B tier. King Brand. When played, you may take a Northman Militia from your draw deck into hand. Yeah, I think we're going to put him in A tier. Again, I mentioned that the 1 attack or defense is actually really, really, really effective. Yeah. So I think that's where he belongs. Another Northman Militia just shows that there's more time to get it. Woodman of the Anduin. If in reserve, you use your action, eliminate this card to reactivate a Northman Battleground. So I won't put this one in S because it's not a card that you literally want to use every single time. You don't want to lose your Battlegrounds in the first place. But I will put it in A because you can lose... I believe that the Shire is a Northman Battleground. You can... Or Dale, I guess, we'll just say. You can lose Dale, and then you can use this to reactivate it. So then the Shadow would need to take it again. So, very good card. So I haven't played a ton with the Fire and Sword cards in the 4-player version. I've played a ton with them against the Shadow, which has been a whole lot of fun. So they're good cards, they're fun cards, but I think as a last note for this, let's talk about the ones of these that would be Omega tier. So, Gandalf the Grey, absolutely Omega. And then I'm actually going to say, I'm not going to say that Anduril is, because it's limited to where it can go, I will say that Shadowfax is. So Omega is 1, 2. Let's also say Gandalf the White is Omega. I think that makes sense. There Is Another Way is crazy good, I guess. There's a new card. I can't remember what it is, but it does pretty much the same thing for the Shadow, and that card is just ridiculous as well. So, let's see. I think that might technically be it. But if you just look here, most of the Free People cards are in, like, literally the highest number of Free People cards are S tier. The next biggest group is A tier. The next biggest group is B tier. The next biggest group is C tier. And then, yes, they have their F tier cards, but they want to forsake so many cards in these decks anyways that that's not too painful, I guess. So, anyways, there's our tier list. Peace and prosperity. Thanks for watching.